What the Actual Fork podcast is co-hosted by two intuitive eating registered dietitians, yours truly, Sammy Previtt, owner of Fine Food Freedom, and Jenna Warner, owner of Happy, Strong, Healthy. We can't stand diet culture bullshit and love keeping it real. Our mission is for all humans to believe that they are made for so much more than chasing a smaller body. We are also here to share with you that food can be fun and pleasurable again. Although we are medical professionals, we are human too. We are not afraid to share our deepest, darkest secrets and how years of our lives were taken by diet culture. We started this podcast so no human has to feel alone in their journey towards food freedom. So get comfy and join us for a casual convo where you can expect to laugh, cry, learn, and
welcome back to another episode of the What the Actual Fork podcast. And I can't keep a straight face right now because I feel a lot of pressure from all the eyes that are on the screen right now. We have my husband, Matt, who's never listened to one episode of this podcast before.
That's not true.
And Sam's husband, Luke, who has listened to one. So guys, thank you so much for being here.
Supportive husband.
Yeah, just thank you so much for all the support. Thank you. But of course we're kidding. They are our biggest cheerleaders, and we know we wouldn't be where we are today without them, because Jenna and I have mental breakdowns on the regular when it comes to our careers. So we are thankful. But before we jump in and get to any of the questions that we wanted to get to tonight, we're going to do a this or that. I'm going to put Matt on the spot first. So there's no right answer. It's just whatever you prefer, you're going to say that answer. So Matt, are you a pumpkin spice or peppermint mocha kind of guy?
Neither is not a choice. Huh?
I was going to say
neither.
Either.
Really? Interesting. Okay. Are you a crunchy or soft taco guy?
Soft.
Okay. Are you a guac or queso guy?
Guac.
Guac. These are easy for you. Are you a crunchy or smooth peanut butter fan?
Given it's a crunchy.
Yes. Okay, that makes sense because the wife is crunchy, so that makes sense.
We have all our peanut butter in this house though, because we eat it so fast that we each have to have our own jar.
It sounds very similar to our home.
There's a legitimate thief of peanut butter in this house because she doesn't think she eats that much peanut butter, and the thing is gone by the time every time. It's insane.
I remember her always being big on peanut butter at ShopRite too.
Oh,
like always with like a packet. Yeah. All right, last one here. If you could have one thing in your life in limitless quantities, but it can't be money, what would it be and why?
Wow, that's a tough question.
Go with your heart.
Unlimited quantities?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it could be like metaphorical. It doesn't have to be like a tangible object.
Time.
Love that.
That's really sweet.
And why? So that I can, I mean, that's the one thing I think, in our whole world that we just lack right now. Right? It's like time to do and spend with the people that we love and do the things that we love and get to balance things out. And yeah, time.
Okay, you're forgiven for not listening to this podcast. That was a good answer.
I listen to all the clips on Instagram Live.
Okay.
Perfect.
Luke,
Jenna, do you want to give Luke a this or that off the top of your head of whatever comes out?
Let's go with it.
Do it.
Let's start with crunchy or smooth peanut butter.
Smooth, creamy.
Yeah. See, it makes sense.
Is that just all that you have in the house? So that's all.
By choice.
Yeah, by choice.
By choice.
All right, guac or queso for you?
Both.
Fair. Crunchy or smooth crunchy or soft taco?
Soft taco.
My favorite crunchy or soft is chocolate chip cookie. Crunchy or soft cookie?
Soft.
Me too.
Warm and soft.
And then we'll just go right into, if you could have one thing in limitless quantities but not money, what would it be?
Paid time off.
That sounds very similar to mine. Was like vacation villas all over the world or something.
Mine just sucked. I want to redo mine one day, so that will have to. Mine was puppies.
Yeah, Jenna said puppies. I'm like, that sounds stressful.
You're gonna regret that.
I was literally like afterwards, but I think Quincy was like eating the books in our room at the time, like while I was saying that, because it was so long ago at this point that I was like, I immediately regret that statement.
Has your brother heard you made that statement?
No.
Right.
Okay. So I'll never live that down now.
One is enough for sure. But let's get right into it, because we have so many questions that, you know, different listeners have wrote in or written in. I don't know the right verbiage there, but Jenna, do you have a dying question that you want to get to first?
Yes, because this is not what a listener wrote in. This is a question I would like Luke to start with, because as I think all of our listeners know, that Sam really influenced and helped me begin my intuitive eating journey and transition. And Matt is the only one that has really seen the impact that it's had on my mental health in a good way, but also there's some not good moments that are not on the highlight reel of Instagram. And I know that through conversation Sam and I have had, that her Fuck Diet Culture Fridays were really her transition time, where she was able to channel that energy, use it for good, and share it, and really like get that out there. And so Luke, I would just like to know what that was like for you, so that you could really help Matt understand what I'm
Where you're at right now?
what I'm feeling.
That's loaded. That's deep. Let's see how I can summarize. I mean, I would say more than anything, it took a while, I guess, is a first point, right? It wasn't this switch that flipped necessarily overnight and saying, hey, you know what? I'm changing everything I'm doing. It, you know, comes down to finding people that you want to work next to, work with, how you message things. I think, I don't know, just coming from my background of like a Italian family where you were just slaughtered if you didn't finish what was on your plate, and just eye-opening experiences of just, you know, how prevalent unhealthy relationships with food are. I remember we used to always tease, which I guess, you know, makes more sense now, but you know, she would look at herself, she would look at me, everybody, hey, we all have different relationships with food, and none of which are able to be necessarily exactly transferred to somebody else. So I would say more than anything, it just took a while, in a good way, in that you really found a niche, you found your kind of calling and what works, you know, what you believe in. But it took quite a lot of time. Like you said, a roller coaster up and down, I think was real, as far as even struggling yourself on what you were telling people that you were working with, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, I think what exactly everything you're saying is correct. And so how do you, I guess the question I think I'm hearing Jenna say is like, how did you support me, or how did I take a toll on you? From, I feel like what I'm thinking of and what I remember, because it was more around like March or April of last year. Was it last year I did Fuck Diet Culture Friday, where I would just be talking about work all the time. Like it was just, probably that was like our biggest point of contention. And it was because like I was splinter assing. I had like one foot in diet culture, one foot in intuitive eating. And I was like just constantly anxious because I was always thinking about work. So then we would be like eating dinner and I'd be like talking about work. And he was just like, is this really what we're going to talk about? Like the entire time. Right. But I think now, like after going through it and like recognizing that, like I was trying, like he was there to support me, but he was like my one line of support outside of work that I could talk to. Do you agree with that? Like I feel like that was something.
I mean, and food has always been like something that's super important to me. Like my running joke I always laugh at is when I hear someone say, "Oh, I forgot to eat lunch," and I just look at myself. I've literally never done that. Like I live my life meal to meal, and that's, you know.
One that would go out for ice cream and bring it back to Sammy when I visit Florida. So
Right.
like,
Yeah. Exactly. So like food's always been super important to me, and like I'm into, you know, eating good and as far as good and tasting good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily
morality.
Yeah, exactly. But I like invest time into cooking and eating, you know, good tasting foods to me. So like it is something that was always important to me. So it would naturally come up in conversation. But I think we've worked through that as far as just the understanding you know, I don't know why food is, or how each of us view food differently, kind of. It's my love language.
Yeah,
right?
it
And
is.
it's not yours
It's
at
not
all.
my love language.
So like
though.
that took a long time, like I think overlapping with that, and that I would go, you know, cook through, make this nice dinner, and she'd be like, "Oh, okay, you know, this is nice," and she would appreciate it. And I think you wouldn't appreciate it, but I would be looking for like, man, I just worked my ass off in there for an hour and a half. Like this, you better be more than a thank you, right? So we'd work through that, and we just how we view it. It's fun though. I mean, it's right.
What's your favorite meal to cook?
Mine, chicken cutlets.
Yeah.
We got an Italian over here.
Maybe grandma's meatballs.
Doing his chicken cutlets and grandma's meatballs.
But like, do you remember the day that she did the keto Guido one?
You
Because
always
that was
talk about it. He didn't even watch my Fuck Diet Culture Friday.
That's not true.
I was gonna say he definitely did.
They were. I watched it.
Matt watched them.
Yeah, Matt would comment on them.
Yeah.
Jenna used to show me that, like, and I like could not have been more impressed with the level of creativity and like spot on this. It was like I was like, I can't believe I know the person that's doing this.
Because people would talk about you like you were a celebrity, like in New Jersey. And
Yeah,
like he
like,
would hear it.
I was like, I know this girl. Like, I literally like know her.
I was
Like,
at her wedding.
yeah.
I have a picture at her wedding.
Well, I don't want to undersell it, but like it was almost easy in a certain extent because like there was just constant content. Like you would have light bulb moments of like just living life, being out to eat or watching TV or whatever. Just like, whoa, that is effed up, and we can blast that, right? Like constant content, like, you know.
But to give, and I think where you're going, Jen, and I want to hear your guys' story of your transition and how Matt's been supportive or where there's been points of contention. But I think he's kind of lucked out a little bit because, as many people know, Anna, who's been on our podcast, like she's been my right-hand woman through this all. And she was a student learning diet culture and then transitioning and intuitive eating with me. So yes, I like work with her obviously, but like we had each other through that where we would go to each other when we'd be like angry or mad. I don't know if I maybe brought that up to him as much. Maybe my struggles to him more were like, how do I transition my business? Like, I don't want people to think I'm a phony when I was talking about weight management and now I'm transitioning to intuitive eating. But I think, as we've said on many podcasts, Jenna, that like we're happy to fuck up so everyone else can watch us fuck up and learn from us. So, but what has it been like for you guys? Or like, what's been the hardest part?
Meltdowns.
You're also pregnant. Can we please like make sure that well, when this airs, you won't be pregnant anymore, but like the emotions and the hormones are real, and it's 2020. We had a pandemic, so emotions are real.
We've been spending a lot of time together. So like he really is my only sounding board. And, you know, I'll go first, but I think that Matt has been here to witness things that I never realized how much they affect me. And when we were when we had Evelyn Tribbley on this podcast, it was a really emotional day for me because of things that had previously happened. And I remember crying afterwards to him and just being like, I just want to help people, and I don't know why it feels so hard, and I don't know why I'm taking everything that people are doing so personally. And I think one of the things that has been really hard for me to recognize is what Evelyn said to us. Like, if someone's not reachable or teachable, like you're only hurting yourself. But like, now that I have all of this knowledge of like all of the science and all of the reasons why diets don't work, like I don't understand why people don't get it. That's what I'm having the hardest time with. And that's what he hears off air. After I'm done smiling at the camera, I'm like having a fucking meltdown and only Matt sees it. So your turn.
Yeah, I mean, there's been meltdowns for sure. I wouldn't say that that's like, you know, all the time. Like that's not often by any stretch, but like, you know, everybody else has meltdowns.
Maybe less now.
But no, I mean, Sammy, to your point, like earlier, you know, about like effing up or whatever, you know, I mean, Jenna you got a message a couple weeks ago about someone who you had helped at ShopRite. And they had mentioned, you know, I don't know what the
told her to eat half a banana.
Yeah, and she was like, "You told me to do that," and like it was just, it's pretty cool how you've transitioned, you know, both of you guys to just like looking at things completely differently. And, you know, and how that to you now, it's funny, like that's like something that you're like, I can't even believe I said that,
Right.
you know?
I was mortified.
And it was, you know, it was not that long ago, like on a relative basis. And it's just like, it's crazy how people evolve and change and grow. And I think.
I mean, it's interesting though, like I've heard similar comments out of you. It's an opportunity though, right? Like to just say, here's why I told you that at that time. Here's what has changed since then. And here's why, to your point, I was dead fucking wrong. Right? Like,
no, that is so true. You get, because you have to own it, because you can't run from it. You know,
she remembered it.
Yeah.
Like my free nutrition services.
Yeah.
In ShopRite of Hoboken.
No, and that's like so well said with like what Luke said, because yeah, like, you know, this is my growth. This is how I've grown, and this is what I learned, and this is what I do now. And it may be different, you know, 5 years from now. You know, I don't know what I'll be specializing in, but that's awesome.
Yeah. But I think, and that's what I always tell our clients, you know, people will come to us, you know, before they even start working with us and being like, but I've been dieting for 5, 10, 20 years. Like, you know, but that's just validation that it doesn't work. And so like, same thing for us as practitioners, we were doing that form of counseling, weight management, weight centric. And then we would hear from people like 3 months later with guilt and shame being like, I gained the weight back, or, you know, I failed, and it wasn't working. And we were like, there's gotta be something else. Like this is not working. And so I want to transition that into, and we'll flip it over to Matt first for this question is, so with Jenna switching over to this anti-diet, intuitive eating paradigm shift, how has it affected you in your relationship with food? Or were you someone who always had peace with food and it hasn't really affected you in any way?
We eat a lot more pizza now.
Also, you're pregnant though. We have to keep like referencing.
Yeah, she is pregnant. I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't know that I've always had a generally, you know, I don't know if the right word is healthy, but I've never felt restriction. I think is a lot of, I think, what intuitive eating, you know, revolves around, right? And is the feeling of restriction and restricting certain things that are perceived to be bad or good or whatever.
It's reversing that, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I've always been known to, like Luke said earlier, like I clear my plate, whatever's in front of me, I'll eat. I absolutely love pizza. It's my favorite food. I eat it at least once a week. You know, and I also, I don't want to say that I feel guilty, but I have like an internal thing to my own body where I start to know if I've been going or eating in a way that's like just not consistent with how I want to feel or what I want to do. And it's kind of easy to just shift back, you know, and I think I'm really fortunate for that. But I mean, to your question about, you know, how has Jenna's transition? I mean, we've always joked that, you know, I'm dating a dietitian, I'm engaged to a dietitian, this is how I eat. You know, like when we used to go out, my best friends, like from my college days, that we would go out into the city, you know, we'd be out till 3, 4 in the morning, go to the diner, and like Matt's go-to meal would be like pancakes, a side of mozzarella sticks, a Diet Coke, and like maybe chicken wings or maybe whatever, or like
only
but like,
for him.
But like that would be, you know, I mean, and I would house that, and that would be, you know, after a late night or whatever. But like I didn't feel bad about it, you know. I didn't feel good about it in the morning, not because like I felt guilty, but just because I felt like shit, you know.
It felt physically unpleasant, as we would say that in intuitive eating terms.
So, but yeah, I mean, I also, Jenna and I, like, our running joke is, and I'm sure, you know, you'll get this because you're aware of that space, but like, you know, I'll joke to Jenna, like, you know, and I'll be like, my cardio is eating fiber, you know, and that's like, you know, where that comes from.
That
and like
she used
to like believe that, you know, and like, you know, I would be like, this is fucking ridiculous, but like it was a joke, you know, and
that was straight off the when I was the Effector girl.
Yes, I was gonna say.
And it legitimately,
I didn't know if
it's okay, we can. He literally still says that, and it's like now a joke. And I also think that some of the things that have definitely changed is like when Matt and I first met, on our first date, I ordered 2 dinners because I wanted to take one home with me because I was so poor and I couldn't afford to buy my own food. So I ordered 2
And
meals.
we cut the meal short because she wanted to watch The Real World.
Okay. Don't know why he married me, but I ordered 2 dinners and I was like fine with food at that time. And throughout our relationship, like when I was dieting, there was way less wine and beer and fun and, you know, enjoyment of food together. And I think as I've made this transition to like the enjoyment of pizza together and stuff like that has been so much easier, which I think is important to kind of call attention to also. So his relationship with food, like people always ask me, like, does he really eat the food that you make? And I'll joke, like he hates when all of his food touches, and like I make all of my food touch everything. So like he eats it, but like he doesn't like it. Like he likes the flavor, but like he doesn't cook the same way I do. So I think some of those changes have definitely happened, but no, he's always had a great relationship with food, from the things that he shared.
But it sounds like Matt was able to be with you through your relationship with food really changing. And like, that's a question I have for Matt is like, do you see more like life satisfaction out of Jenna versus I remember disordered eating Jenna because she was my boss.
Right.
She would be going to the gym every morning at like 5 or 6 a.m., like packing her food. I think it was 21 Day Fix you were on. And I was like, do I need to do that? Like, so do you notice, like you said, more of the pizza nights and then enjoying like family events? Like, do you see a big shift in Jenna or in her relationship with food?
I mean, for sure, you know, and I think it's like, you know, the circumstances are very different now. Obviously she's pregnant, we're, you know, like whatever, we're at home working from home and all that. But like, yeah, when she was working out of the house, I mean, the amount of meal prep that she would do in little tiny, like
the colorful
plastic,
containers.
you know, she had little containers and Tupperware and like this for that and this amount of peanut butter at this time. It was like all like very prearranged. And like, I mean, I was, you know, it just looked like you know, I didn't like, you know, it's like, looked like a lot of work, you know? And the other thing that I noticed like a marked difference now is the number of Gigi crackers that are eaten. Because Gigi crackers were like a food group for Jenna in like every meal of the day, wherever possible. And I was starting to like eat them a little bit too. And they're terrible. But like, you know what? Like, I don't know. They're like, hey, listen, if you like Gigi crackers, you should eat Gigi crackers. Like, whatever. I didn't enjoy Gigi crackers personally.
He's like, what the fuck is a Gigi?
Never heard of a Gigi.
It's a Scandinavian brand cracker.
You know, Matt used to put cottage cheese on them.
Yeah.
Remember when Jenna used to call them pizza?
Yeah. Oh my God. That was like our old pizza night. Like Gigi's in the toaster oven with like a little bit of cheese and a little bit of tomato sauce. That was like pizza night.
Pizza's
And I like at the time,
now.
yeah, now that I'm thinking back, I like thought that was like kind of normal. Like this is what dietitians do, I guess. But so yeah, I mean, it's not something you think about day to day, but no, I mean the changes are, you know, I mean it's drastic, and like you said, like we definitely enjoy food a hell of a lot more now than we ever have. I've always enjoyed food.
He loves food. He really does.
Yeah.
That's so good. Luke, you have anything to add there?
Well,
It's
no,
funny
you take it
when-
away.
but
Has
when I
your relationship with food changed at all?
Yeah.
Over the years.
Sure. I mean, to Matt's point, right? Like I'd eat till I felt sick, right? Like at certain times, and okay, I cooked one steak and a baked potato and whatever else, and that's what I would eat, whether I wanted the full thing, more or less, or somewhere in between. Or, you know, I'm thinking of like family holidays. Like I would not eat breakfast to make sure that I was as hungry as I can to show up to grandma's, and then just slam food to where days I've gotten sick, like actually. And then thought that was normal. I was like, okay, well, that was a great Christmas. I feel like shit for 3 days, right? And like, because I ate a lot of good food. But I mean, we even look at each other and we said it as like laughing and joking at first, but like it's a real thing now that like I can leave food on my plate. Like that was physically impossible for just thought it was normal, and that's how I ate, and I loaded it up and I made sure I finished it, right? That's how I was raised, and maybe that's the Italian or whatever, but yeah, the fact that I can, to your point, Matt, like, yeah, you know what, this tasted good for a while, I don't really want it anymore. Like that was a a big kind of eye opener that you've helped me get to, as far as just not feeling my mother, rest in peace, or my grandmother, or somebody looking over my shoulder, like, eat the damn food, finish it. And I'm like,
or I'm insulted, right?
In tears, right? Yeah, exactly. Just stuff like that where I can kind of be in tune and say, hey, you know what? I could probably force it down, but I might be getting the meat sweats when I go to bed if I do that, right? Like,
yeah. No, we'll definitely like laugh sometimes when we go out to eat or something, I don't know, really yummy barbecue or something, and we'll be taking a box home and we'll be like, intuitive eating.
Yeah.
Like, not that he's forcing restriction in any way, shape, or form. He's just full and satisfied.
Never heard of a to-go box until the last couple of years. That wasn't a thing. I would finish mine and whatever else was on the table.
Yeah.
Dude, that's such a great point. It's like, I don't know if you use the word, but it's like awareness of allowing yourself to feel and be full, and then choosing not to like continue to eat.
Yeah.
And not have that be like a bad thing. I mean, because it brings me like, you know, in terms of, you know, you guys, I teach yoga like on the side of my business and meditation and things like that. And like one of the key things, like a pillar of, you know, the yoga that I teach and the meditation that I practice is like that awareness and like just noticing, like allowing yourself to notice how you feel in any one moment and not having judgment around it.
Yep.
Because then with that, you get to choose what path you want. And in that instance, it's taking food home. And it's not like starving yourself or making yourself sick. And it's just, I think everything starts with that awareness. And I would imagine, I don't know, you know, I haven't done the training or anything like that, but like intuitive eating, I would imagine is probably centered around having an awareness of what it is that you're eating, how it's making you feel, and where you want to go and what direction from there.
Right.
Yeah.
And just like redefining what full meant, right? Like full to me for 20 plus whatever years of my life was eat until you're sick, or eat until you're like just absolutely bloated and just feel like shit. Now full is like, okay, I have enough fuel to get to the next meal or the next snack or whatever. We're content. So totally.
But I think that's a good point, Matt, of like what he said of that awareness of being able to say no. And I know Jen and I have talked about that in previous episodes of like, people, when they hear food freedom, they think like, I'm just going to eat all the food and like fuck dieting and like I'm going to eat pizza, cake, cookies. But like food freedom is being able to have that awareness and listen to your body without judgment and be able to say no if you don't want it. And it's not always saying yes to everything. So that's a great point that you had.
Confidence in your choices. And I think this translates perfectly into a question that I got that was, how to explain why intuitive eating is a journey when your partner just does it naturally. And so what I think the boys were just explaining is it has been more natural for them maybe to be on a food freedom journey, but with you and I, Sam, and I know we talked about this earlier, that like you didn't even know Luke when you were really like diety Sam. But he still watched that transition with you. And I think that for a lot of people out there that are struggling in recovery and dating someone that doesn't have any knowledge of what this food freedom journey is all about, it can be really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially seeing your partner have such a great relationship with food when you're like, what the fuck? Like, why can't I enjoy pizza or whatever it is?
Yeah. I mean, that makes me think of one thing that I have learned, I guess, from you, as far as like, it's your decision to make food decisions, right? It's not mine. It's not because I made this giant meal that you better sit your ass down and eat it, right? And
What do
I struggle with
say?
that.
What do we say?
My plate, my business.
My plate, my business. That right.
But like, you know, I would go into this saying like, all right, you know, we made, I don't know, whatever. I made pasta and something tonight. Like, that's what you're eating. And you've looked at me and said, man, I want that. And I have to take a step back and be like, shit, I just cooked all this stuff. You're not going to eat it. You're going to go pull a frozen pizza out of the freezer. That shit sucks compared to my meal. But trying to appreciate that, I would say, is a continual struggle a little bit, at least for me, right? Like, and vice versa, right? Like, I don't know, was it yesterday or whatever? You're like, I don't want this chicken wing. Do you want it? And like, old me would be like, hell yeah, free food, let's do it. But now I'm like, I wasn't really hungry, so I was able to kind of make a decision. And you don't force me to make decisions about it. I don't do that as well with you, but I'm working on it. You've taught me that. So
You've gotten better with that. I think,
I've gotten better, but I think it's still something that we work through.
Yeah. Because I think it comes back to like how we're raised around food, of like clean your plate, like eat what you're served, like that kind of in that same context. But like we'll have leftovers or something. You're like, you have to eat this, this, or this. And I'm like, I don't want that right now. I'm going to eat this. And for him to be like, and then that's where we joked about like my plate, my business. But that it's definitely hard. I think that's a great point you had, Jenna, of like people going through recovery. But I think it's showing, whether it's showing them this or like showing their partner this podcast, or there's definitely resources out there of like, what is intuitive eating? Just kind of giving them that education, because if this made up person that we're talking about, who their partner doesn't understand, has been living in diet culture and been on diet after diet after diet after diet, like they can't eat pizza with peace, right? We like right away. It's a journey. It definitely is. So just trying to educate their partner as best they can on what intuitive eating, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, like sitting in the partner spot is completely uneducated, but like, I don't know, my advice could and would be to let them make their own decision and then support it. You don't have to inject your own opinion on top of it. And I don't know, for whatever that's worth, that's kind of what we play with.
Yeah.
I think that something that's coming up for me is like when I make choices for my own fuelings now that make me feel unpleasant, and I communicate to you, like there's never ever been any judgment from you in that sense. But like if I'll say like I'm so full or I'm so uncomfortable right now, it's like so much worse because there's literally no stomach space left. But in general, like when I've had that experience, like that used to bring me a lot of guilt and shame, because I would feel like I would like ruin our night, like we couldn't hang out, like I'd be uncomfortable and it would make me feel bad. But now being able to communicate, like I really don't feel good, and I'm not mad at myself, but like, ooh, I don't want to order from that restaurant again, or whatever the case may be. Being able to verbalize that in a way where your partner hears you, understands what you're saying, but doesn't offer feedback, I think is really important. Like sometimes just like listening and just saying like, okay, like let's go lay down. It's like all you need to do. Whereas I read something recently, I think it was Victoria Garrick, who she said something and her partner made a comment like, you're really going to eat all that or something like that, and how triggering that was for her, and really setting those boundaries, like, that comment can't live here. Right?
Yeah, even if it didn't mean, like he obviously didn't mean it for harm. And there's definitely times like, I don't know, like a breakfast where maybe I'll have like more than you, like a full bagel in addition to the eggs and stuff. And yeah, just like that's something for people to listen to. Like if you're a female and you're dating a male, like whoever you are in a partnership, like you can eat more than your partner at a meal or a snack. And I think that is like something that is so ingrained in diet culture, is like the female needs to eat less than the male, but like that's bullshit. Like there's times,
especially when you're growing another human.
Yeah, but hey, I'm not growing another human right now, and there's times I feel like you've given me a scoop of rice, and I'm like, that's it, that's all I get, and I'll go back for more.
Well, because I've gotten the other end of it too, and that's you've left some behind sometimes, and
you never know.
The beauty of this journey, you get to make your choices every single day.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think if there's any way or any other questions here. Do you have any other big ones on your end?
Someone asked, has Matt turned you into a yogi yet? I think that answer, it's wishy-washy. Go ahead.
Why don't you answer that?
No. It was for you.
Have I turned you into yogi? I mean, I'd say Jenna does prenatal classes all the time. Before she was pregnant, she would take my class, at least once every couple weeks, which I love to have her there. And like, there's the, like, not just showing up for like class and like practicing, the movement practice, but like, like we said before about non-judgment and awareness and things like that. I mean, her, like the way that she's been through this whole pregnancy, it's just been amazing in terms of really having like a real gratitude practice and journaling and things like that, right? I consider that all to be very much, if not more yoga than than like the positions of yoga that you see on Instagram, you know? So yeah, to that point, I mean, for sure, she's a yogi.
You said too that when you do sometimes hear me speaking, whether it's on podcasts or whatever, that there's a lot of yoga and intuitive eating have a lot of the same principles.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes I'll overhear her, you know, with like if I'm upstairs on, you know, she's on a client call. Like, I mean, I overhear things, and like I've gotten like, it's like so apparent that when we started talking, like Luke like listens to Sammy because he knows exactly like what she's about now, like what you're teaching, like what you're trying to deliver to people, and like what you're not for. It's like so apparent that he just like listens, you know. And I'm fortunate too to be able to like really listen to the things that Jenna says to people. And the messages are like really consistent and really inspiring. And yeah, I mean, I think, you know, intuitive eating specifically, I heard some of like the classes, you know, that she was doing the first training or whatever, I don't know what they call it. But I was like, this sounds like yoga. Like this is yoga for eating, you know? Which is really cool. So yeah, I mean, I think 100%, like, you know, and like she'll like to bust my chops too, because, you know, I teach live stream classes in our house
with no furniture in it, so everything freaking echoes. Okay?
Yeah, there's like a huge echo in this house because we have nothing in it. So at, you know, at 5:45 in the morning, like I'm teaching class, and I'll walk back in and like take Quincy out, and she'll be like, "Did you talk about possibility today? Was everything a 10 out of 10? Were people in full expression?" And I'm like, and like, so because she knows what I say, like this is like the shit I say. So yeah, I mean, but I love that she's listening, you know, and we're like, it's cool that we can like bust each other's balls about this shit, because otherwise, like, why would it be fun? You know?
We need to get some of those yoga links sent over. You got someone who's become addicted to yoga in quarantine over here.
Yeah, I've been bought in. Yeah.
Well, Ashley was on our podcast, the owner of Titanium. So her studio is close by, and
yeah, I've bought in myself. I mean, I used to look at workouts as kind of like a weightlifting meathead, if you will. And a few injuries later, at this point in my life, I kind of want to look halfway decent in a bathing suit, feel good, and have a decent golf swing. So equal parts yoga and equal parts kind of light weightlifting is where we are today. So probably a good twice a week at least, I'm doing some yoga. So it's been great. Yeah.
Wake up early Saturday mornings. We'll send you the link tomorrow.
Yes.
Are you going into the studio? Are they able to open?
Yeah, they were doing remote for a while, but per blessing curse of being in Florida, they're open. So yeah, we're going in on some limited space classes. So it's nice.
No, I mean, I'm sure that, like you said, limited space. I'm sure they're doing it safely, but I mean, I think there's an energy about being in the studio in person with people that's different than live stream. And there's also a lot of benefits to live stream too. But yeah, I definitely, it's, you know, one of the things I miss is the energy of being with people.
Right. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad you're in.
But I'm with you, you know, now I'll add it to the list, uneducated on yoga and intuitive eating. From my point of view, it is a lot of the same stuff as far as just kind of, you know, mental sanity, like why drive yourself up a wall about, you know, these certain scenarios where you don't necessarily need to, or being conscious of kind of just how you're feeling and things like that. So just being aware, you said it well, Matt, as far as awareness, but I think they're totally in the same ballpark.
I think what's really cool that we have not discussed is the boys' relationship with food may have never been like diet culture to intuitive eating, but both of you are what you're describing right now is your relationship with fitness has completely transitioned into an intuitive movement type space. And like when I met Matt, he was waking up at 4 a.m. to go to fucking CrossFit. He would drop me off. I remember like I would sleep over. Sorry, Mom. I would sleep over. He'd drop me off at like 4:30 in the morning so he could go to CrossFit. And I'd be like, what the fuck is going on? But now, and I mean, movement for him, sometimes I'll walk into his office and he's just like flexing his spine. Like that's his movement.
Now clarify flexing, because I think people, when you hear the word flex, you think like standing in front of the mirror.
No,
and
he's
like,
literally trying to move like one vertebrae at a time.
She listens.
One at a time. And like that's his exercise for the day, which is a beautiful thing. But I think too, what you both are saying is what's important to you now is your health. And the health
like
of,
Luke said, with being injured, you know.
And like the health of your joints and, you know, mental health and all of those things. And that is this food freedom journey too. It's prioritizing those things, which is really cool.
Yeah. And I mean, Jenna, what was that? A few episodes ago, well, it'll be way further back now, but you did a whole episode on your relationship with movement, and that how our relationship with food, our relationship with movement, they're separate relationships, but there's so many parallels. And especially with people that we're working with, a lot of times if they're very disordered eaters, they're going to have they're going to have a disordered relationship with movement as well. So it's cool to see that transition for sure.
But I mean, even on a daily basis, right? Like you've taught me, you know, in a health, like a good way. And basically that, hey, you know, I actually did a nice workout this morning and I'm freaking hungry and I'm eating all day and that's okay. And then there's other days where I'm like, I slept in till 9 and I got 2,000 steps on the day and I'm not really hungry because I didn't get off the couch. And then whatever, that's kind of just okay. I'm just listening to, you know, the fuel that the body's calling for is real. Mm-hmm. So I think they're even tied on that, obviously a daily basis, obviously very closely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else have we taught you boys?
I know. Let's keep going.
Tell me more. Well, I know one thing that, we talk about on all our episodes, how we want to, you know, diet culture to be up in flames is just how prevalent diet culture is. Because when people hear diet culture, I think a lot of times they look at like keto, intermittent fasting, cleanses, whatever, you know, like Weight Watchers, like very like specific diets. But even for this guy, we'll be, you know, watching TV and he'll be listening. It was like, if you want to tell the story of like the Yankees game, and he'll be like diet culture. Like,
watch it. You know, I've become in tune with it a little bit of like, I'll scream it or I'll be like, here's a fucked up commercial. Look at this. Look, can you believe what they're saying? Like, you know, or on the news, like they, you know, bring on the same expert, right, about everything, and she comes in. I'm like, this woman just told me about the COVID vaccine. She told me how to go on a keto diet, and then you know, like she knows everything. And then, you know, it pisses me off a little bit, like you, as far as that anger question. As far as like, I'm just aware of some of these things. To your point, I'm even sitting there watching the Yankee game, whatever, earlier this year, and guy comes up for the Blue Jays and. I don't know how to explain it. PC, stocky guy, he's shorter, larger body. He doesn't look like the rest of the athletes. And the announcer goes, you know, that's what's great about baseball. Even this guy can play in the major leagues. And I'm like, whoa, that's fucked up. Like, you know, like, Sam, you believe what this guy just said? And like stuff like that, where it's just like, I mean, that would have went in one ear and out the other if she wasn't my wife. But now I'm just like, man, that was weird. Like, you can't say that shit, right? Yeah. Like, it's
a fatphobic
wrong,
comment.
right? So just stuff like that, where it's just like, it's eye opening of how prevalent it is. I probably would be much more tone deaf to it, just because I wouldn't be educated on it. But having the blessing of living with you.
Aww. That's like
I'm just aware of some of this stuff now, and it's like, you know, and I kind of feel for people at times too, right? Like in a workspace or whatever, if, you know, oh, your wife's a dietitian, you know, I'm trying this or this, and I just think in my head, like, I'm, you know, it's not my place, I'm not educated, I'm not going to talk to you about that, but I'm in the back of my head, it's like, man, that sucks. I, you know, I hope it works. Probably won't, but, you know, like, I like you as a person, but that's a stupid idea, right? Like, you know.
He's always like, well, my wife wouldn't support that, but maybe you should ask her. But I think that's something that it's so important. We've talked a lot about, you know, relationship with food and our language around that and awareness. And I think, you know, looking at weight stigma and fat phobia and just diet culture in general, like our generations have the ability to change like your future child, right? And that verbiage that we use around bodies, like the episode we did with Jenna and her mom and body image, and our relationship around food and how we talk about other people's bodies and our own bodies are going to have a huge impact on the future generations. So I think that, like, that comment he's talking about, I think that's huge.
Well, and I think, and I'd be curious, not that I'm asking the questions here, but like
let's
Jenna
go.
and I have had this conversation, and Luke brought up like another really good point about, you know, and I'd kind of be curious, Sammy, what you think about this, because I'm sure you guys have talked about it, but in your profession and in your field, you know, it's the unique kind of curse of everybody has an opinion and is a quote unquote expert on diet, on food, wellness, whatever. And like in my professional career, no one can come up to me and have an opinion on something unless they've really been educated and have an intelligent conversation. Same thing with like, you need real training to be able to like have a conversation about like whatever, about, you know, like strength training or golf. Like, I mean, could you imagine like someone like, you know, not having a clue about like, you know, there's a context that's required, but yet with diet, like, and food, like anybody can bring up what they think is working for them in the moment as gospel. And yet your guys are like tasked with like having to respond to that. And I feel like that's just like, I don't know how you guys deal with it, but like, I'd love to hear you guys, because we talk about it all the time. And I can't imagine, that's like such a burden. So I'll like leave that to you guys.
That's my favorite thing that you've ever said to me, is like, he literally looked at me one day and like was like, I give you so much credit because everybody who eats is an expert, and everyone who eats is an expert of their own body. Like, that is true. But when you mix social media into it and influence, it becomes this space where like nobody even wants to listen to us. They want to listen to, you know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, is it Phil Mickelson? The golfer has some stupid fucking keto coffee, and he'll be like, look at me, great on the golf course with my coffee. And it's like there's just, but honestly, it goes back to, for me, and I know I preach this to Jenna.
Yes.
I know
exactly
what boundaries, because like she said earlier, are they reachable? Are they teachable? Are they even going to hear what you have to say? Like, I've wasted enough of my mental and emotional strength and like time on people that it just, it doesn't help them and it doesn't help me. So it's more just like boundaries, and like keep preaching what we're preaching and intuitive eating and planting seeds. And if and when someone's ready to hear it, like they'll come to you. But I don't even waste my time anymore with certain people, because it's just not worth the energy.
Yeah, she's really good at that.
No, and you're right. You know,
we've gotten better at it.
So, I wasn't always
to fuel the fire. Like, that was not always the case, right? Like, it was, that's what I'm gonna go after today, and I'm gonna fix that. Well, and you know, like, okay, sure, put a dent in it, but you know, probably not gonna fix that today, right? Like, you know, you're not gonna stop everyone from doing keto today, everyone, right? Like, sure, try, but you've learned that, you know, it's the ROI ain't there.
Yeah.
Do you know what ROI is?
I sure do.
Oh.
I still don't know what Matt does for a living, but I know that term.
So let's let these boys finish up with, if you guys could leave our listeners, you're each gonna get a chance to speak, with one piece of advice. Let's say they have a partner, our listeners have a partner that is going through intuitive eating, or, you know, how can a partner be supportive? Like, how can you be supportive to your partner going through intuitive eating? That's my question to you guys.
I'll be a little repetitive, I guess, and try to elaborate in that. I think it's trying to, I think you said it well, Jenna, listen first and then kind of support their decision. It's not which I struggled with more, still do a little, but it's less about what I want you to eat or what I, you know, want to put on your plate or what I cook. It's supporting what you're craving or what you're hungry for or whatever. I think, yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's a listen and support kind of game to me. Easier said than done at times, but I think that would be my advice, if you will.
Love it.
Me too.
It's awesome. Yeah, I mean, just to pile onto that, it's like so many things in life, right? You can have had traumatic experiences around family, around exercise, or whatever it is. That trauma exists everywhere. And I think, maybe, from, at least from my perspective, it's harder to see that trauma can exist around food. But the reality is it absolutely does. And, when you look at somebody, or when you're getting to know somebody, you don't know what experiences they've had with food. You don't know what can be triggering to them. You don't know what they go home saying to themselves about the meal that you may have just shared with them or not. So, I would say like anything, I mean, be respectful, and have, awareness around that. And like Luke said, I mean, the best thing you can do is just support somebody's choices. And I think the worst thing you can say is like something to the effect of like, are you really going to eat that? I mean, there's just a lot of other things, and a lot of, what you guys do is just amazing work around healing people's relationships with food. And I think that can, heal their relationships with a lot of themselves. And I don't know. I think just recognize that there can be a lot more than what you see in front of somebody or on their plate, around their relationship with food and what they've been through. And, you can either choose to contribute to that, or you can choose to support them towards something else, Yeah.
I mean, to evolve with you there, I mean, it's like you taught me. I mean, it's not even intuitive eating based, but just in our daily lives for mental sanity, like you helped me be inquisitive and ask why, right? Of just as far as, well, why aren't you hungry? Oh, because you just ate recently. Or it might be a simple answer. Or why aren't you hungry? Oh, because you have trauma piled up, like you mentioned, Matt, or whatever. Or why are you hungry, or whatever, or why aren't you, or whatever.
Curiosity.
Curiosity is well said. Just ask why, and kind of try to dissect it with them. Could learn something along the way.
Yeah. I always say curiosity is like my intuitive eating buzzword, like in every group coaching session, like just trying to remove the guilt and shame related to food and bring curiosity in. And so much easier said than done, but
so much. But yeah, it's such an amazing practice, because even in yoga, curiosity is a word that we use often, because
it's the same thing.
when you're holding a position for longer than you would prefer, you can choose to be like, this fucking sucks, give up, or start breathing heavily. Or you can get curious about, okay, well, what's beyond that? Is there more for me here? Like, can I actually learn the practice of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, and, coming back to practices of breathing and foundation, things like that. So I think curiosity is such a great word. It's such a great word.
And also, just to finish that, knowing and being okay with it being a work in progress, because I'm not always perfect with Matt, and he'll joke, like he's very secure with his food choices, but I'll make a comment when it's like the last slice of pizza and I've had zero, like, are you really going to eat that? Because I know he's not going to feel good afterwards.
And I'll say 1000% yes.
Stop
now that you said that, I will.
And he said, stop shaming me. And so and like he's throwing it back at me always with that. But like, it being a communicative work in progress, and knowing, somebody's going to make their own decisions. And if it's not going to make his tummy feel good afterwards, it's not my fault.
His belly, his problem. His problem.
My business.
That's right.
Right, you guys are going to use that all the time
my
now.
Plate, my business.
My plate, my business. And
when I'm digging for ice cream in the freezer, my business.
I don't say anything.
You are the same with ice cream. You and Matt and Sam.
Yeah,
are like wishy-washy.
I never loved ice cream. I don't know.
Neither. I'm a like chips and salsa person. Like I'm more salty over here.
COVID has
sparked
our
bread for me.
What do you say?
Like buttered bread. Like we could like, I mean, feel like it's been so long since I've been to a restaurant, but like literally, like our running joke was, I could literally just like that Italian place in Hoboken.
Yep.
Like they would bring out this warm like loaf of bread, it wrapped in a like a cloth napkin, and I would be like content with eating this entire huge loaf of bread with all the butter. Like it's all I need. It's all I need for the entire meal, including dessert. Do not need dessert. I need the bread.
Me either. I would just do, but he's a big bread and butter guy. I mean, we got an Italian over here, so part of it.
Well, boys, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for supporting us. Guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode of What the Actual Fork Pod. We know there are a lot of pods out there, and we are so grateful that you are here listening with us. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe, like, share with all your friends and faves, and follow along with us on social at What the Actual Fork Pod. We promise to continue to bring you the hottest topics, greatest guests, and the most fun you can possibly have while fighting diet culture bullshit. We love you, we appreciate you, and we will see you next week for a lot more fun.